Hello, hello. Happy Saturday, folks. Thank you so much for joining us in part 3 of the Wild Edible Banquet series. Today, we are going to be exploring with Candace Thompson and Journey Binwala all about wild seasoning. Foods you can find at the Foodway, plants you can find at the Foodway, at Sky Cove Park, and other places around the city, and how you can utilize them for your seasoning mixes. So we're excited today to be back at River House, the Bronx River Alliance headquarters here at Starlight Park. As the Bronx River Alliance, we are the stewards of the Bronx River, and we're excited to bring you this programming as the Bronx River Foodway is adjacent to the river itself. So follow along today as we learn about wild seasoning with Journey and Candace. I'm going to hand it right on over to Journey and Candace.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Nathan.
Whoops.
Hi, happy Saturday to everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Candace.
I'm Journey.
And this is part 3 out of 4. We've already talked about fermentation, so beer and wine making, and then we talked about quick pickling and lacto fermentation. And a lot of those, in a lot of those examples, we used a lot of wild seasonings. And so we're now really excited to kind of like dive into some of the flavors that you're going to find all around you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like everything is nicely following along from where we started, and then you're going to see that some things kind of like touch back to what we did previously. So it's just a different technique,
Yeah, and one of the things I had an experience with earlier this week, I had to make a signature cocktail for my for Solar One's annual fundraiser, right? And I made elderflower vodka, and then I put like a sumac float in it, right? And I was, I had tasted it, thought it smelled great, I loved it, and it was very interesting to serve it to people, because it kind of reminded me that sometimes we have a little bit of fear around flavors that we've never tried before. And so I think I want to invite you to be curious and open when you're kind of diving into new flavors, right? Because especially with wild plants, we often eat plants that have been cultivated over centuries, and those flavors have been honed and shaped. Whereas when you're working with wild seasonings, sometimes they're not going to be consistent in the flavors they make. Sometimes they're not going to be as strong, or they're going to be very strong. And if they're just not flavors you're used to, it might freak you out. And sometimes, we're just not in the mood. We just want to eat some macaroni and cheese and lay down and feel comfortable. But sometimes you're in a space where you can be like, all right, I'm ready to try some crazy different flavors. And so that is where we're at today. So, wherever you're at in that journey, just I invite you to be curious and to try things, and try them a couple of times. Like, I don't know about you, but like there's some flavors I still really struggle with. Black licorice. I'm really trying. I'm trying so hard. I'm getting there, but it takes like 7 or 8 times. They say that like you should try a flavor multiple times in order to kind of like have your brain start to acquaint yourself to it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because I'm an herbalist, right? So when I look at flavors and different types of things, I'm not just looking at the taste, I'm looking at the medicinal properties to it, I'm looking at how it affects the body, and if it's giving something that the body naturally needs and uses, because we always have to remember that our body is built to go along with what nature creates and makes. So although we have our wonderful cultivated plant, but our cultivated plants, we cultivate them and bring them in a way really more so based on taste, right? On taste. So it doesn't really always equate to, how our body will recognize it and utilize it. But when nature makes something, creates something, it's a design that goes directly matching what our body needs, the receptors that we have, right? So I look at it in that sense. A good example of that is like bitter, right? We have bitter receptors all over our body. When you go into nature, a lot of plants that you're going to encounter are going to have somewhat some type of bitterness to it on a low end scale and on the grand scale. And bitter flavor tend to freak people out a lot, because that's something that on a cultivated end, or when we create plants, we have strategically removed bitter out of our plant profile, right? But this is what I'm saying, nature mimics the body. it doesn't give us the bitters that our bitter receptors need, our digestive system, our liver. Many parts of our body depends on bitter flavor. And when you are tapping into the wild, you're literally tapping into a system that is built for your body. So always keep that in mind. And like Candace said, start slow. We are bitter deficient, right? Because when anybody tastes something bitter, it's like, I don't want it. You hear the word bitter, oh, I don't want it. Like bitter has a really negative undertone. Oh, she's bitter, he's bitter, right? But bitter is healthy. Sometimes you need to be bitter. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people need to feel that because it is what it is. We can't live without bitterness. And you don't want to be bitter deficient because what's going to happen is you're going to have a hard time digesting fats. You're going to have a hard time breaking down the meat that you're eating because many parts of your body is like, you're not giving me any bitter. I can't break this down. What do you want me to do? So tread lightly, start slow, and always understand there's a range in flavor, right? And you get to pick what range. So even if you pick the lowest one and the bitter side, it's cool because you're still getting the bitter, right? And that's the idea. So just be curious, right? Try things slowly. And what I love about this is getting different tastes, right? Different tastes that I'm not used to. And if you're someone that likes to have fun, and if you have children, most kids love anything that's like, let's make something, let's create something, right? This is really fun. This will get your creation, your creativity going. And then you might be able to create some unique taste in your food, in your drinks, and all of that. When people come to your house, it's like they can't get things anywhere else but when it comes to you. So there's definitely something to brag about for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think just to kind of close that thought, like, especially in American cuisine, like I'm from Eastern Kentucky, right? Most of our food is fried, salty, and involves 4 cups of sugar and some mayonnaise. You know what I mean? And so like, it's taken me a long time to be able to eat things that aren't just white flavored is basically my best description for it. You know what I mean? And so like having the time to kind of be patient with yourself to try these things, it will return rewards because it'll just open your world so much.
If you're not used to spicy things and you have only been on the bland side of things, definitely start slow. Give yourself time and your body time to get used to everything. And then sometimes it's about blending. Yeah. It's like a flavor can taste really like, you feel like, oh, this is awful, this is but if you blend it with another flavor, if you use just a little bit of it and all of these different nuances, which we're going to get into really soon, then you might find a really nice sweet spot where it'll be like, oh my God, this is heaven.
So we were going to talk first about some of the methods and the tools that you might want as you start your wild seasonings journey. So let's see, we both got one of these bad boys. So something that you might want to invest in at some point is a mortar and pestle. I like yours. But mine also doubles as a murder weapon, which is nice. But yours is much lighter and easier to carry.
I have like 3 different types, and I'm still looking for all the different types.
Yeah. This thing, every time I pick it up, I'm like, someone's going to lose their life. And then if you are maybe one who doesn't want to work out your buys and tries while you grind stuff up, a coffee grinder can always be great. Sure, you're going to use it for your coffee. You can also use it for your herbs. Just give it a nice little wipe down between. I find that that's super helpful. We have this one here that's very lovely. What else were we going to talk about?
So you will need these. These are the main thing. This is like, everyone has some of this type of gadget in their kitchen. So it doesn't really get too complex. This is like one of the main things because you want to be able to break things down into powder and things of that nature. So this, a jar, right? You're going to use some kind of jar to put your thing in. You can get fancy and get spice jars. I got my little one here with little holes I can just.
Or you can, like, as you use your spices, save them, right? Same with, like, a lot of times it's really useful to have jars or bottles. I often, because I make so many quick pickles, every time I empty out a bottle of white wine vinegar, that jar is going in a box because it's going to come back and be useful again. Ways you can just be really resourceful that doesn't have to require a bunch of funds. Another thing that can be really helpful, which we have here at the Brown Sugar House, but we didn't bring it in here, is a dehydrator. Now, it is super easy to just hang up plants and dry them. And like all your grocery store rubber bands and you know, twist ties and things, definitely you're gonna wanna stash those, be able to hang up your plants. I usually just bundle stuff in little groups. I have a big fan in my house that I'll hang stuff up on, and I dehydrate it that way. If you want to, or if you're processing stuff in bulk, at some point you might want to invest in a nice dehydrator.
Yeah, in the beginning, you know, that's all, just either hang it or leave it on your table, right? You just lay it on the table flat and let nature take its course. It's gonna dry up with time. The only thing that you have to remember where it will be absolutely necessary for you to use a dehydrator or your oven, you can use your oven too, but at an extremely low setting, is that if it's a plant that has a lot of water content in it. So think of berries, right? So a berry, just leaving it out to dry, it's not the smartest thing to do because it has juices in there, has water, so it's gonna go bad. It's gonna go bad. So for a fruit or a berry or anything else that has a lot of water content, putting it in the oven. Some people will use their air fryer because the air fryer also have a dehydrating level to it, so you can put it in there. Yeah, those are your best bet for anything like that. Outside of that, leaves, greens, you can just lay it out and then you'll be good. With a couple of days, patience is a thing. That's a tool. You need to be patient for sure.
Also a tool. And then I think the last thing we had on our list was having some little screens or sieves can come in really handy. I already used that this morning, grinding up some, Nathan ground up some cardamom, and I use this to kind of sift out the bits we didn't want, boom, boom, boom. That's gonna be one of those tools that probably is gonna come in handy for you. Obviously, they come in all different kinds of gauges, you know, thicknesses of wire. I don't know the word for this. Hole size? I don't know what you want to call this. So, you know, you might find that you need ones that are bigger or thinner, depending on what you're processing. That'll just be part of your journey as you start working with different plants.
So just know that this is a journey, right? So we don't expect you to have everything at once. We surely didn't start like that. We started with whatever you have, that's what you work with. Always remember that.
Yep.
Work with what you have, because at the end of the day, you don't even know if this is something you're gonna continue to do anyway. So don't go ahead buying things. Do it slowly. And as you grow with it, the more you do it, then you'll see for yourself, like, you know what, I need this, I need that. Then you go ahead and go and order all the things that you need. It becomes very personal. So that is
That's
for you, yeah.
So then we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of some of the ways that you might process these things. So there's going to be kind of two big families. There's going to be kind of dried blends or dried herb mixes that you're working with, and ones that are wet. And that might mean that they are simple syrups, or they might mean that they are oil infusions, or they might be compound butter, like you see right here. And what else do we want to say about that?
Fresh.
Or they might just be fresh,
Yes.
right? Which I would say that still falls in the wet category, right?
No,
There's
no,
still
yeah,
water involved.
it's still waterable for sure. You know, it'll be like the difference if I'm using dry thyme to make a dry mix, and then I need the fresh thyme to make a fresh seasoning mix, right? So when you're talking about seasoning, what is it about? Like, what is the word even seasoning mean, right? For us, seasoning, it's about adding flavor to our food, to whatever it is that we're doing. We are literally looking for something that's going to taste good, amazing, great, right? All of these adjectives. That's what we're looking for. So that is like one objective. But then even within seasoning, because we are cooking, because we are utilizing all this stuff into our food, you always have to keep in mind, we eat so that we can provide our body what it needs, right? We eat so we can provide our body what we need. So as we're seasoning, you're literally picking the ingredients that you're going to assemble. So think of yourself, think of what your body needs or your body lacks, right? So if you have any kind of condition, if you have allergies, if you have eczema, if you normally get headache, you know, if you get your period, there's all of these things that the ingredients that you're picking and putting together is going to affect your body long term. So always keep that in mind and pick things that not just because it tastes great, it can taste great, like sugar is amazing, right? It tastes great, but sugar has a really big downside to it. So you want to be mindful of the things that you pick for your body to put it in the seasoning and mixing it.
And I think let's just get into some plants, yeah? So we kind of organized this based on kind of like larger flavor categories. Obviously, when you're talking about pungent herbs in particular, like we're gonna say that it's sweet. I don't know that I would describe any one of these plants as having any one particular flavor, but for kind of us and just being able to kind of describe and have some form of order to how we did this, we kind of set some rough categories. So we were gonna start with ones that we felt like kind of on the sweeter side, yeah. And I went ahead, or Nathan actually very kindly wrote down for us the proper, or the common name and then the Latin name of each of the plants, just because since we don't always have the like live version here with us, so that you can after the fact look it up, because obviously when you're talking about foraging wild plants, you've got to make sure that you're getting the right plant, right? So let's start with anise hyssop, shall we?
Anise.
So here's some anise hyssop, and what we'll do is we'll pass this around for everyone in the room to be able to try. What I love about anise hyssop is that it has been my black licorice gateway.
Oh, okay.
Because it is licoricey, but like
Not
like a
licorice.
little
It's
bit.
licoricey without being licorice.
Yeah. And so maybe if you kind of crush this up, maybe you can smell. I'll let you guys take it with your hands.
So she's asking you guys to leave. I think you want to understand that different parts of the plant will give you different things. You might find the leaf having a stronger or not a strong scent. So what I'm going to be passing you is the flower of the anise, right? No, it's not anise. Is this anise? No.
That looks like
That's bergamot. See, I made a mistake. But I'll pass it anyway. So this is bergamot. We have the bergamot leaves as well, but
yeah, I do have the flowers in the bottom of this jar, but yeah, they will taste differently. So that's something to know.
This is the bergamot flowers, and this bergamot is old. Okay, this is from 2020. But in the world of herbs, once you dry them up, the shelf life of these herbs tend to last. So,
and let's see, we give people like little bowls or something to put there. We can compost it all afterwards. Just so we have the name, here's anise hyssop. It's one of the weirdest Latin names. I don't know how you say this with any dignity. Agastache funiculum, I'm gonna go with.
Agastache?
Yeah, the stashy part always feels weird to me, but Agastache funiculum, sure, let's go for it. So this is one of the first ones. I find that this makes really great simple syrups and stuff for cocktails, for like mocktails and things like that. Obviously, it's got that like licorice flavor. You could put it in meat. You could put it in any kind of blend, right? But it's
crush them. When you guys are smelling, it's important to crush to really smell the plant. Now, one thing about anise hyssop, do not confuse it with hyssop. It is not hyssop.
Yeah, or bissap, right? That's the other name for that.
No, bissap will be sorrel, hibiscus.
Okay. See, there's like, this is where common names get you in trouble, right? Because different cultures have different words for some of these things.
Yes.
Anise hyssop is a native indigenous American plant. Another one we wanted to talk about kind of in the sweet world would be mints, right? So we've got some fresh, what did you say kind of mint?
Apple mint.
Apple mint, wonderful.
Yeah.
And lemon balm, which is also in the mint family. In actually talking a little bit about plant families, a lot of our common herbs that we eat for seasonings are in the mint family. So anise hyssop, mint, basil, lavender, thyme, bergamot, right? They're all in the same family. And so it can be really good. That's a really good one to learn if you want to start foraging for wild flavors. They often have square stems. They're often very aromatic. Like there are some very key signifiers that can help you know that you can.
Yeah, and don't think just because it's not all mint plants are going to smell like mint.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are looking for the mint smell and you won't find it. So.
Mentha. So it's a huge family. There's so many types of mint, right? There's chocolate mint, there's spearmint, there's mountain mint, right? Which is one of our indigenous mints that's like really, really like mentholy, right? I actually have that one here from,
If you remember the old flavors of our old toothpaste, way back in the days, that minty flavor, that's that's what mountain mint actually tastes like, smells like, just like that.
yeah, it's a potent one. Compared to like a peppermint, and you'll see that it's pretty different. And so these subtle differences, right, between these flavors.
And like she said, between the wild and the cultivated one, like, a mountain mint that you encounter in the wild will not have the same strength smell as a cultivated one. So I've always find that the cultivated one has a stronger scent than the wild version, which the scent is still very much there, but it's not as strong as the cultivated one. So then if you don't like the cultivated one, you just might find yourself liking the wild version much better.
Very true. And then I think one of the other ones that we were going to add to the kind of sweet contingency would be sassafras. I always think about it as a sweet one. It's very bright, I think, like especially the leaves, and you can use different parts of sassafras. Sassafras was often used for one of the original root beers. It's also just a beautiful plant. It has 3 different shaped leaves, one of which is like kind of shaped like a mitten, and one of which is just a single leaf, and one of which is 3 like this. And I actually have some of it ground up for people to try. It is a common part of filet, which is a powder often used in gumbo, Cajun Creole gumbo. So here, I'll pass this around and you guys can give it a sniff.
So Candace is passing around the leaf, the ground up leaf of sassafras. You can also use the bark of sassafras and the roots. I've been trying to get the roots so hard.
Yeah, it's like, it is such a wonderful,
It's so hard, yes. When you get it, you're like, because some parts, the smell or the flavor might just be more intense than the other part. And you might just look for that intense flavor. So you might just like, you know what, I don't want to use this part, I want to use the root.
Sassafras. It's really nice and easy. Sassafras, SPP. Actually, I'm not sure. Is that its Latin name?
It's sassafras.
Yeah,
Great, I love that.
simple.
Yeah.
I like it like that.
Fun fact, sassafras was one of the most, even before tobacco, it was one of the first very heavily exported, it's actually not a fun fact, it's kind of a crappy fact. It was one of the first heavily exported plants from the New World back to the European land, right? Mainly because indigenous communities had told them that it would help fight venereal disease. And so they cut down sassafras trees at massive numbers and exported them back to Europe. So it's been a very potent and powerful and important plant for indigenous communities. And it's beautiful and everyone should know them and honor them.
It is really a crappy stories. And stories like this always like make me feel some type of way. Only because it's like, okay, we use them extensively at one point, and anything you do like on a massive amount, right? There's always going to be some kind of problem. And then you fast forward to now, then it's like, oh, don't touch sassafras, no, sassafras, no. So like those type of things bother me because it's like, but it was okay then, you know, and then now it's another story. So
yeah, well, and I guess the other thing to add, right, is that like probably a couple decades ago, they did a bunch of studies of sassafras where they fed like, you know, a metric ton of sassafras to a rat and would be like, see, it causes cancer. Guess what? You feed, you know, an inordinate amount of anything to someone and it's going to give them cancer. It has been known to be a medicine for a long time. Just don't only eat sassafras and you'll be good. Right?
And that's the thing with wild plants, and you always want to double check, right? Because you don't want to stay in just one realm. What I mean by that, if you all like everything science, right? You don't want to just stay in that space when it comes to plants and native plants and wild plants, because there are some nuances in there that may not give you the full picture. So with sassafras, for example, the study that they did, it fed a rat a massive amount of sassafras, right? And it had negative, you know, the result was really bad. And then from that, it was just like, hey, everybody stop using sassafras. However, you also have to ask, well, what part of sassafras did you use? how much sassafras did you give the rat? All those nuances matter because it has to mimic how we use it. That is not how we normally take sassafras. We don't take sassafras in a massive amount. We only take it in a small amount. So if it's not done the way we normally do it as human, then it's not 100% accurate. Water kills too. You drink too much water, it will kill you. You drink just enough water, guess what? Beautiful body, beautiful skin, everything great. So do your research. So check scientific facts. Check also how regular people use it. So you see the nuances. You want to hear everybody's story, and then you kind of make up your mind off of that. But always listen to all of the facts and see, well, what are you pulling out of? What are you pulling out of? Because people using it for years versus person not using it, just doing testing, two different things.
For sure.
All
All
right.
right, I think we've done our sweet. Those were our like ones that we had in the sweet category. Are we ready to move on to spicy?
Yes, let's get to the stuff.
Okay, so spicy. One of the first ones that I am always a big champion of encouraging us to forage in the wild is garlic mustard, Aliara pedulata. This plant is up all 4 seasons of the year. You can eat the flowers, you can eat the greens, you can eat the roots, and you can eat the seeds. And the seeds and the roots are what we're going to talk about most when we're talking about spice. Let's be real, Europe, the northern climates, not known for their spicy flavors. That's not what we're here for. When you think about spice, you usually think about chilies, you think about, the things that grow in Southeast Asia and South and Central America. But mustards are one of the few spicy plants that grow very abundantly in the northern climates of the world. I actually brought with me some garlic mustard seeds. I can dig amongst my jars here.
I mean, I have to confess, this is like, I love garlic mustard, right? But I don't use it. Not because I don't like it or anything like that. Just never got to. Got to it. I see it. I love smelling it. Every time I see it, it's like, ooh, garlic mustard. It smells just like garlic. And then that's it.
And so for me, like thinking about foraging as a way to steward land, garlic mustard was brought here by my European ancestors. It is an ancestral food for basically everyone from the old world, from Europe all the way to Asia. It was cultivated as far back as 4000 BC. It was brought here. It now runs amok in our forests. It is a prolific self-seeder. So that's why I like to make mustard out of the seeds, because it helps remove them from the ecosystem. It is a plant that is allelopathic, which means that it prohibits other plants from growing. That's not a way to operate. So I like to try and kind of remove it. Don't be like that. So I try to help remove it and keep it in balance in the ecosystem, not with the intention of getting rid of it, with the intention of helping it share space.
Now I like that. Utilizing plants, that needs boundaries. Is great, because then it gives us access to something that we can make condiments with, making mustard with mustard seeds, having your own little wild mustard. That's an amazing thing to do.
And I thought I would just show you how easy it is to make mustard, because it's really easy to make mustard. And this applies to every kind of mustard plant there are, but I make it a lot with this garlic mustard. So I have some garlic mustard here. I'm gonna throw it in my coffee grinder. I started to grind it up last night with the mortar and pestle, and I was like, I'll do this in person. It'll be fun. I'm gonna throw it in the coffee grinder.
Use electricity.
I got it.
So this is why having, one of those gadgets works, because if you are on a bus and you don't feel like spending time doing all of this, then just put it in the grinder and then you're good to go.
Boom, boom. I've only kind of half ground it up, but you can see that I've kind of broken the seed shell on some of it. You can smell it, right?
Yes, you did.
So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix this garlic mustard. And I learned how to make mustard from a guy on the internet, as you do. Basically, all you're gonna do.
use it in your recipe?
Yeah, I'm a graduate. So you can then add either water, beer, or wine. I'm gonna use a little cooking wine. Just gonna mix that up like that. Do. Throw a little salt in it. Do. Mix it up with a thing to mix with, which I don't have. That's what I forgot. Ah, I have a lid. I'm gonna shimmy it with my lid here, hopefully not spilling it all over everything.
I mean, if anything, we have sticks.
Oh yeah, here, I'll use that. Little allspice stick. Now I'm gonna let this sit for anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes. The longer I let it sit, the more mild the mustard will be. And I could just use it like this if I wanted to, but if I add a little vinegar, it will set it at whatever kind of hotness I want it to be at. And then I put it in my fridge, and now I can use this as a mustard, like if I have like a sausage, or like when we have our event on November 5th that you're coming to. You'll be able to have a little bit of this with your crackers and your cheese and your pickles and whatnot. Just that easy. Go around, collect a plant from the ecosystem, turn it into mustard. I think I would have ground it a bit more, and maybe I would.
I have a question. So you said that when you add the cooking wine, the white wine, right? That it's going to be mild.
No, the mildness is contingent on time.
Oh.
So like if I let it sit here and kind of do this for a little while, it'll cut more of the flavor, like more of the spice in the mustard will kind of become more mild. If I go ahead and add the vinegar now, it'll be like as hot as it can be.
Oh,
You know
okay,
what I
so
mean?
if I wanted really to have a strong cake, then I'm not gonna let it sit.
Yeah, like I could go ahead and put the vinegar in now and be like, and we're done. Yes.
Do you know why?
No, I don't. Chemistry. This is where I'm a folk person, not a scientist. But that's how it works. Here, you can smell it. Spicy, huh? Here, I'll give you the allspice to kind of stir it with. You can put a little allspice. Actually, maybe I will put a little allspice in it too for my black pepper component.
Could you just take a cracker and dip it?
You could. It will. If you've got sinus problems, it will fix them right for you. Yeah.
Wasabi.
Yeah, for sure. You smell it? Here, I can pass it.
Right?
Yeah, it's got that.
Yeah.
Wasabi is in danger?
Yeah, it is.
Uh-oh, we wanna take them.
We have a taste tester.
Yeah.
Spicy. Ooh. Spicy. Smell it, dip it in your crackers. I'm gonna add some vinegar here in a minute that'll make it more.
Yeah.
Now, since you taste, is it lasting, like the taste, the flavor, does it last in the mouth, or does it disappear quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not like long lasting.
Yeah, it's not like a chili. Yeah, it's you know, this is where like, this is the kind of pot we can grow this kind of plant. Of course. And then the other part of garlic mustard that you can use for things like this is the roots, which are very horseradishy. And I actually we foraged some garlic mustard. God, I have so many jars. We foraged some garlic mustard this week. Where are you? Here you are. And I added I ground it up in my mortar and pestle, and I actually used the leaves and the roots. And then I threw a couple of chili peppers from my CSA. And I'm gonna have this ferment for the next couple of days. And then I will blend it up, and then I will add vinegar, and I will make a little hot sauce that folks can try. So I'm cheating. I've got some like proper peppers in there. But the garlic mustard itself has got this very like horseradish kind of bright scent.
It's not cheating, right? Because you making a mix. When you do
Right.
seasoning, you're mixing a lot of things together to enhance each other, right? So you blending them, so that's actually really good. So I'm assuming then, if I'm making, because I think since I've never used it, I'm gonna do that this year. I haven't made any fire starter this year. So
It would be
instead
great
of
for
using
fire starter.
horseradish, I can just use
Garlic mustard.
garlic mustard roots.
I
wanna
was,
do that.
I was thinking that it would be really good in a fire cider for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I haven't made one yet, so I still have my ones.
Cool, so that was the next spicy boy we wanted to talk about. And then we wanted to talk about Virginia peppergrass. So you can, I'll let you drive the car on that one. Virginia peppergrass, beautiful, one of my favorite plants in the summertime, so beautiful. So thank you so much. So when you see it growing, it'll have these tiny little pods. And in the spring in particular, it has these tiny little white flower tops. Talk about something that tastes like wasabi.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness sakes. It is like, you pop that off and put it in your mouth and go, oh.
Yeah.
Is this what they call poor man's pepper?
Poor man's pepper,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the poor man's pepper right there. But I find that once it's dry, the kick is not there.
Yeah, that is one that I find you have to work with fresh.
Yes.
You know what I
So
mean?
there are some plants where fresh is best, and that's definitely one of them.
And then who else? Oh, spicy. The last one spicy we wanted to talk about, I guess, was wild carrot seeds. I guess, yeah, I consider them spicy. So, you know, the carrot family is another one of those families where some of our common herbs come from. Parsley, most notably fennel, carrot. It also is the family of some of our most poisonous plants, water hemlock. So you really want to make sure you know what you're getting. So wild carrot is also Queen Anne's lace. Now, proviso, this is also an Appalachian folk remedy for if you want your period to come. So do know that, that is a thing. But I find that it's really nice as kind of like a finishing spice on things. You have to kind of chew it up or grind it up, but it's got like a nice, almost like peppery, like literally like pepper kind of flavor to it.
Look at the seed.
Yeah, the seeds are so pretty.
Don't mind my ashy hands.
How do you harvest?
So it's super easy. This time of year, the heads have kind of all closed up into these beautiful bird's nests. Just snip those off. Often what I'll do is then I'll run them across a screen, kind of pull all the seeds off, and then bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, I'll pass this around if you guys can taste it.
Do you have a steak?
Oh, yes, I do. So wild carrot, Daucus carota. You can also eat the roots. They taste like wild carrots. You can also eat the greens. They taste like wild carrot greens. Again, you want to make sure that you ID this plant correctly, because misidentifying it could be deadly. Yeah, give them take some of the seeds and give them a good chew. You'll see that they're very peppery. I think that's our spicy contingent. What do you think? Spicy?
Okay, so. Y'all making fish. Ooh, okay.
Not into it.
Need some milk?
I need to drink some. All right, so when you're tasting, because when you're tasting and you're chewing it, you can notice many different taste and flavor. There's definitely bitterness. It has bitter in there. There's pungent. There is definitely spice in there. It's not like really strong, but it's definitely in there. And you can kind of see, by tasting it, what it might really go well with. This could be really good in a savory mix type of food, but I wouldn't put a whole lot. Like I will put just a little bit because I don't want it to have a strong presence. Just a little bit, like a fly in the wall.
Yeah. I usually like grind it up and do it like as a finishing thing on
Yeah.
top of something. Yeah, for sure. All right, so those are our spicy friends.
Awesome.
So I think now we're gonna work on sour.
Yes, sour.
All right, do you wanna tell people about sumac?
Yes. All right, guys. So we are moving into our sour section. So what we have is sumac. Sorry.
Yeah, we have a couple different types of sumac we can show you.
Yeah, this is one, right?
Yeah, so that's the smooth or the shining. I don't remember which. Do you know which name that you have here at the Foodway?
The fragrance sumac. Oh, we have sagamore sumac and fragrance sumac.
So let me show you what the drupes look like. I'm very grateful that you collected these. So this time of year is exactly when you would collect these beautiful drupes that you'll see growing often at times along roadsides. Sometimes they look like this, sometimes they're furrier. You want to taste them because again, it's not a plant being cultivated for human consumption. And it is bright and sour and citrusy. Oftentimes people make like a basic lemonade with it.
Yes. So when you come in contact with it, it does taste that way. I personally prefer harvesting mine in the summertime because because the summer has the heat. And with sumac, that citrusy, tangy flavor that you're getting is really concentrated based upon the sun. So when it's like that nice, sunny, hot day, the plant is releasing a lot of that coating that gets on the outer part of the berries. Now, when it's not sunny or it rained, for example, we had rain like yesterday. So after a rain, you never collect them a day after the rain because all of that coating with those flavors is no longer there. You want to wait for another sunny day. You always want to do it in the sunny days to really get all the really bright flavor because then you'll be disappointed. You'll taste, you'll be like, I don't really taste nothing. It doesn't really give me anything. I like to make sumac egg with it, like a lemonade, because it's tangy. And so for me, it's important that I get it when it is at its peak.
Yeah, so so you can use it just like as the berries themselves, but what is more common is that you would take it, grind it up in your food processor and run it through a sieve like this. I do work with the berries just straight if I'm gonna make something like a syrup like this, which is like a very heavy syrup. Go ahead, you guys can give that a taste. Yeah, I also want to note that like it is a very common flavor in the foods of Turkey and Palestine, in Middle Eastern flavors. Sumac is very, very prevalent. This is our native version of that. So
Yeah.
you can make your own za'atar if you'd like.
Yeah, and it's not just used for sweetening stuff or that lemony tangy flavor that you make in like drinks or syrup. It is great in savory seasoning type of situation with your meat, with your salad, right? You mix that in with some garlic and some salt, some onion, and you do a really nice seasoning mix. It's an amazing blend. I've had it, with lamb, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's great in those kinds of things where it's going to add that brightness. I mean,
Yeah.
anywhere that you would use sumac in, like putting it on top of eggs or on top of meat or anything, I got it.
Another way that is really great to use sumac is to infuse it in honey. I love infusing it in honey and just letting it sit there and allowing the honey to get all of that lemon tangy flavor. So that later on when I'm making tea, when I'm making whatever, and I need to use honey, it's just put it in. Sometimes my daughter's like, Mama, do you have lemon? I'm like, no, I don't have lemon. She likes to drink her tea with lemon. Regular part, I have sumac honey, and it'll give her that lemony flavor that she's looking for from the lemon. So it's a really good one to have on hand, and you can use it in multiple ways.
We had somebody ask a question, particularly about anise hyssop and how they tried to use it in baking and found that it lost its flavor. I think this segues excellently into us talking about spruce and then showing you like how you can make sugars and things that maybe would help retain the flavor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to confirm that with you before we
Yes.
change topics. So the next one we wanted to talk about was our little piece of paper.
My favorites.
So the next one we wanted to kind of put on the sour spectrum would be things like spruce tips, which is Journey's favorite.
Yes, I love me some spruce tips. Okay, okay? I can't wait for spring because of spruce tips. Oh, no, it's okay.
So yeah, it's not something that we know that very often you can eat a lot of our evergreen species, and that might seem a little crazy, but they are so fragrant. I mean, think about if you like rosemary, right? It's a very similar kind of flavor profile. And so Journey here has some spruce tips. So you obviously dry those, and then how do you often use those?
Yes. So no, I use it in different ways. My three best way to use it, I love to use it making simple syrup with it when I make drinks, because it just brings, it makes the body, I like the effect of it in the body. It allows you to relax. You just kind of get this feeling off of it. So I love that. It has an adaptogenic feel to it, which means it'll allow your body to handle and maneuver stress better, right? And the taste of it, when you get it as a spruce tips, it's like lemony, tangy, citrusy, but depending on the tree, one might be more lemony or tangy than the other. So I love all those surprises. I also like to mix it with sugar to retain the flavor of the spruce tips, right? Which she has right here.
Yeah, so this one's not spruce, this one's actually fir.
Oh,
So this is fir sugar, but I'm gonna pass it
the
around.
same.
And, thinking about how you might use something like this in baking, right? So now I have made a sugar that smells and tastes like this plant. Now, I've never done this with anise hyssop, but it seems to me that it would make sense that if you wanted to kind of preserve the flavor and then be able to cook with it, putting it into a syrup or putting it into the sugar and then adding it that way would probably work best.
Yes, so that way will be a good way to do it. And when you're trying to preserve a flavor, you also want to look at, because as you're experimenting, you're learning the plant, right? So with the anise hyssop, you preserve the flavor, but also ensure that whatever processes that you're doing in the baking, that process in itself too is going to preserve the flavor and not remove the flavor. So some things is when you add it, sometimes is when you add it and not anything else. Other things is using a method to extract the flavor while it's fresh. A good example of that is lemon balm. Lemon balm when it's dry just does not give me the same thing like when it's fresh. So that one I'll only use it fresh because I want to extract the flavor, everything of lemon balm, I'll put it in sugar so that, or salt, depending on what I'm doing, so that I can have that authentic flavor and smell that I like, and I don't lose it later. So if you're baking, just figuring out when to add it.
Which also brings up the point that you could literally make an extract, like vanilla extract, right? It's just vanilla beans in alcohol.
Yes.
You could do the same thing and make an anise hyssop extract and add that to your baking and probably maybe have the flavor be different. You don't think so?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So with extract, like the vanilla bean, yes, right? But with some other plants, you're making a tincture, and what you're going to be extracting and getting in, you might get all the alkaloids, so the flavor may not be the same as the smell. So the smell is one thing, and then when you're tasting it, it's not the same at all. So you want to be mindful of that. With vanilla, it works because vanilla smell and the taste, they all kind of come out and show itself when you mix it in with alcohol. But then other plants, you're not going to get that at all. You're going to get something entirely different.
Fair point.
Play with it, try different things to find out which one works best for you. I like to say it like that because it's an experiment. It's not going to be funny if we tell you exactly, because then you haven't had the chance to go through your own process. You might come up with an amazing technique or an amazing way to do something because you just started something while you're doing it. And I don't want to rob you guys up with that.
And also, you can, one of the things I often do when I'm starting to cook with a particular new plant is obviously Google is great. There's lots of options there, but you can also look at plants that are related to other plants and see how people cook and operate with them. And an anise hyssop oxymel tastes so good.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love anise hyssop is just so great.
And I come out with it's amazing. But back to my sprucey. Okay, so another thing that I do with my spruce tips is if I'm making a hot chocolate or golden milk, one of those warm milks, I will crush this, put it up in powder, and mix it in with all of that blend so that I can get that flavor, that good feeling with a hot chocolate or my golden milk as I'm drinking it. I have yet to use it in savory. I just use it like in baking and drinks, things of that nature. And sometimes just a tea. Sometimes I just want a regular tea with the spruce tips. I love the flavor. Like the flavor is amazing. And out of all of the syrups that I make, anytime that I add spruce tips to it, is always the number one that everybody loves. It's like, oh, what is that? I want some of that. And it doesn't matter what blend, it can be by itself, it can mix in with another blend of herbs. It just adds something to a blend that you just can't get anywhere else. And then just love that about this plant. So that's spruce tips for you guys.
I'm gonna have to collect spruce tips and I really like to make shortbread with my fir sugar. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I think next on our sour, is
Barberry.
barberry on our sour list.
Yes, absolutely. So barberry berries.
Oh, barberry berries.
Yeah.
And this, when we were talking and making plans for this the other day, this is what I love about being a person who's into this kind of stuff, is I didn't know you could eat this. And Journey was like, oh, we should include barberries. I was like, say what? I was poisonous. She was like, no. And I was like, well, dang, okay. You know, so it's really cool because being in the community like this, you start to learn from each other the things that they do, you know?
Yes, barberry are amazing. They are also known as a nature antibiotic. It has a lot of berberine in there, which is great at removing those pesky bacteria that we might get infected with every once in a while that are hard to get rid of with antibiotics. We have some plants where, like, if an antibiotic doesn't work, they will respond to a barberry, a golden seal, an Oregon grape, because they're all high in berberine. Now, it's a sour, but it's a sour bitter. For me, it is not a berry where I'm just walking around and like I can just munch on in that way, because like I said, it's sour bitter. If you like sour bitter combination flavor, good. But I love it in cooking. I love to cook with it, like making like a rice mix. I will add the barberry berries in there. Sometimes I will make like a digestive bitter, something that you can take before your meals and after your meal to have your digestion. I will use that because it has bitter and less sourness, and I'm looking for something different to drink that might give me just a little different flavor that's not bad, but just different. And I will use the barberry.
I have to try one. I should have tried one before I passed them around. I picked up, you know, it's funny, I harvested.
See, look at the face, the faces. Do you taste the bitter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely bitter sour. Mm-hmm. Definitely bitter.
Yes. Where it grows? Sure. So
All over the forest.
barberry is everywhere. It's actually, you know, a plant that is hard to get rid of. You know, when I go into the woods, when I go to the forest, I always run into a whole bunch of barberries in open green spaces. So that's where I encounter them a lot. And then I also encounter them in my neighborhood because people use them as ornamental. So in front of their yard, they have like all this beautiful barberry. And I'm always like, do you even know what to get right now? So you can find them very easily. What I will say is look up what barberry looks like, so that it's easy to identify. Like right now, it's easy because they have the berries. So if you see those berries, it's like, okay, you know, barberry. And the root and the bark has a beautiful, it's like this color right here. Yeah. It's this color.
It's the wildest color to
Yeah.
dig up, yeah. I have some land and I have a bunch of barberry on my land that I've been slowly trying to remove. And I give the roots to my herbalist friends, and now I know that I can use the berries. I mean, it's another one of those examples of how landscaping plants that have been brought here have kind of taken over. And it is another one that we can kind of help steward land by utilizing it in the landscape. It is really
It
beautiful.
is,
It's also
it's an amazing medicinal plant. I have to say that, like, you know, if God forbid something went down, you didn't have access to pharmacy and all of that stuff, like barberry is one that you, if you have an apothecary, you want to have that in your apothecary. It is an amazing antibiotic to use when you don't have access to medical stuff.
it's also pointy and spiky
Yes, it
and
is.
not fun to touch. So just be careful
Definitely need gloves to
Yeah.
mess with barberry.
for sure.
Does it dehydrate well?
Yes, it does. I love the root because it's just the color, you know what I mean? It's like there's all of these beautiful colors when you start digging to the point, you're like, oh, you get some orange, some yellow, some red, and you're just like, what?
Mhm. I think we're moving on from sour. I think, unless rose hips we counted in sour. In...
Well, we have, yeah, rose hips is definitely a sour. So the next one is rose hips.
Okay. Oh, I have some. Nope. Yep, there they are.
Okay. Oh, these are my favorite. So these are the rose hips. And rose hips comes in different sizes. It depends on the type of rose you have. If you have a cultivated rose, your rose hips will be bigger. And the color also will be different. Some rose hips is really bright red. Other rose hips might be like an orange, reddish type of color to it. And the best time to forage rose hips is after the first frost. It tastes better after the first frost. It has more antioxidant. The vitamin C level of rose hips also is much higher after the first frost. What I do is, because sometimes I may not have the time to wait until after the first frost, or the birds might get to it before I do. Like, there's so many things that can happen. So if I see it and it just looks good, I will get it now and I'll put it in the freezer so that I can mimic the first frost. You know, and I'll leave it in there for a while, and then, you know, I'll take it back out and then use it however I need to use it.
Yeah, same with like chokeberries and things like that. You can do that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I actually collected these because I was making some bouquets. So I collected the barberry and the rose hips for color in some bouquets, and then I had them on my back deck this morning. I was like, oh, we talked about barberry and rose hips. So I just pulled all of the rose hips off. So how would you use rose hips in your cooking?
Rose hips, you can make a jam with rose hips. You like the small ones that we just showed you. I'm not in the business of removing the seed. That's all. It's just too small unless I get a much bigger one. So I tend to keep mine whole. You know, just like that. I make syrup. I make jams with it. And I use it as a sprinkle, like a finish on top of things that I cook. Not savory, I haven't used it in any savory thing, but I can imagine adding this in a homemade ketchup or even like a barbecue sauce. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I can see like how if you were to extract the flavor, because yeah, they do often have, especially the bigger ones, they're hairy on the inside, like it's a bit of a fiddly business. But if you can extract that flavor out of it, it's really delicious.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I love these, because when I'm out in the woods and I'm foraging, and that's like my snack. I literally just walk around like, and then I'm just eating it as I'm walking. And for me, it reminds me of Skittles. Because it's like sweet and sour. It's sweet and sour, not sour and bitter, but sweet and sour, and I just love it. So I'll just walk around and snack with it as I'm foraging.
Sweet. Okay. Who else do we have? Let's see here. I have a list on my phone. I'm not just like checking my email. So then we were going to talk about, move into our bitter friends a bit more. So we wanted to talk about mugwort, which actually, I don't think I have any mugwort plants here, but I do have mugwort salt.
That's the first for mugwort.
Yeah, and imagine there's no mugwort here. How could that possibly be true? Nathan, I think, is going to run and grab us some. But kind of in the same way that you can preserve stuff with sugar, you can also make salt. And I find that this mugwort finishing salt is really, really awesome. When I make crackers, which we'll be doing next week, I tend to kind of sprinkle that on top as like the final razzle dazzle. I actually cooked with a chef friend of mine once, and he was like, "No, that mugwort salt's amazing. Where do I get that?" And I was like, "I can make that for you, Jason."
It's funny because when people ask her, they're like, "Oh, this is great. Where can I get it?" I'm like, nature. And then they're looking at me like, I was like, well, you know, you can go to the woods, the forest, and find them. That's what it's like. There's no store selling it. I'm like, no, nature.
Yeah.
Nature has it, and it's fake.
The nature store, the very free nature store.
So
Yeah.
these types of salt, I mean, think about it for a second. When you go into Whole Food and you're going to the seasoning aisle and you're looking at the salt section, there's also a section where they call it artisanal salt. That's what it is. That's what artisanal salt is that salt that is mixing with things that you don't normally encounter and things of that nature. They add a different spice, different types of mixtures. Sometimes it has clay with it. It's, you know, the color is different. And you can make your own artisanal salt. And you know they're expensive. Artisanal salt is not cheap. You get a little thing like that, you're like, okay, this is just a one-time thing. But you can make your own at home, and it's so easy. Just having put the salt and the herbs together, seal it in the jar, set it aside.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we wanted to, you know, we're doing less demoing today because so many of these practices, like it's just a quick Google search. And it'll show you that like to take some mugwort and put it in salt, you know, chop this up, add it to some salt, lay it out to dry, or dry that first, add it to some salt, put it in a jar. You know, there's a couple of different methods. All of them are just like,
yeah, so
kindergarten
definitely different methods. So you can do it in a dry form, you know, like not the fresh dry, but you put the fresh with the dry with the salt, right? And then just letting it infuse that way. Or you take the plant and the salt and grind them up together, right? So because it's fresh, it's going to be wet, right? And the salt is going to take on the juices of the plant. It's going to be a nice little, they're going to incorporate really well. The color also, it might just be really green or just really brown. And then you just leave it out to dry. Once you blend it in really well, you just set it out to dry. Once it dry and it hardens up, you like grind it up again, boom, you have yourself a mugwort salt, right? So there's really different ways of making it. And then when you're doing that, you kind of see which way you like. And you might be like, okay, when I'm cooking, I like it in this way, but when I'm baking or when I'm making something else, I like it better when everything is combined together. So it's just like, it's up to you to decide which way works best for you and which way has the best flavor that you like.
mm-hmm. Okay, do you want to talk about burdock now?
Yes, burdock.
You got your burdock seeds?
No, we don't have burdock seeds. Sorry, y'all. I forgot burdock, but we'll talk about burdock anyway. You guys can Google it. You'll be able to see what the burdock seeds look like. It usually starts off with the burdock burr. Like right now it's brown, it's all over. And burdock seed, you can crush it, you can use it as a replacement for coffee, but it is a bitter and I like to use it in seasoning. So when I'm making my seasoning, remember what I told you guys, you want to keep your health and your body in mind because you're doing everything that you're doing to give your body what it needs. So what bitter does is it'll allow your digestive system to work better. What it's going to do, the liver is going to make more bile. Your pancreas is going to release pancreatic enzyme that is necessary. Your stomach is going to release more hydrochloric acid. It's going to make more hydrochloric acid, which you need in order for you to break down the protein, in order for you to kill all the incoming bacteria and viruses that come through our mouth from the food that we eat, is going to strengthen your the lining of your gut, right? So that you don't have a sluggish, so that when you're eating your food, it's not moving slowly, right? It's gonna move at a good pace. It's also going to help to clean out your blood, right? So because it does all of these things, I like to put it in seasoning so that I know that I am taking some of that in and I'm giving my body what it needs. It's not in the seasoning that I make, I don't feel its presence in terms of flavor. but I know its presence in terms of health purposes, and I'm fine with it. Sometimes I don't want something in there where I can taste. I just want your properties internally so that everything else can taste the way I want it to taste, but I still have the benefit of the other plant. So I like to use it in that combination. And then I also powder it and mix it with my hot chocolate and my golden milk mix for that same exact reason. And it's great for skin if you have eczema, any kind of skin issue, because it's helping the blood. That's how it also affects the skin. Because if you have a lot going on with your blood, it's going to show up on your skin. So that's how I use the burdock.
I didn't know that about the skin thing.
Yeah, burdock, like all parts of burdock is amazing. I use the leaves to make an infused oil, and I love using that on my skin because it makes the skin feel velvety. That's
Like
how.
their leaves.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, just like that. And I love that thing. I was just like, oh, burdock, that's you? Okay, cool.
Oh man, I
You
just
know?
walk around like cutting myself. I felt like a bird.
Yes, which reminds me, I need to make another infusion because my daughter, once she finds anything that is good, I turn around, it's gone. I'm like, where's my oil? And then she's like, I used it all. She's like, but I have a whole body to do. I'm like, no. Go get yours.
Well, maybe soon she'll be doing it on her.
No, she's not.
Oh.
As long as she can just pick it back up with me, that's what she's.
That's how she's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, so were there other bitter ones we were gonna
Yes,
talk about?
yes, dandelion.
Oh,
Dandelion
yeah.
root. So dandelion root is another
Oh,
one,
I love dandelion.
but, and they all, dandelion and burdock pretty much do similar things.
Oh, talk about like nature's chocolate flavor, in my opinion, or nature's kind of coffee flavor between burdock and between dandelion and chicory. Like,
So does it taste like, you find like it tastes like coffee?
I think that it tastes earthy
Okay.
and like, so I made a dandelion ice cream at an ice cream social last year, and like people would be like, it's like peanut butter chocolate coffee is how I describe it, because it's like, how do you come up with another, oftentimes the only flavor references we have, right, are these other things we've tasted. And it was like this dark, rich, brown color. I also made it with coconut milk, so that probably like
That's
complemented the
amazing.
flavor.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love them when you're roasting those in your oven. Oh my God.
Yes. So these are not roasted, but like Candace mentioned, like roasting them, it adds another profile. Like you're just enhancing. You know how we use the bacteria to enhance the properties of the plant, the flavor, to just kind of make things taste more tangy or to add a more sour flavor to it. When you're roasting roots, right? It enhances the flavor as well. And you might just be like, ooh, I prefer it roasted, or you prefer it not roasted. When you go buy it at the health food store, there's roasted dandelion tea, and then there's just regular, just dandelion. And there's for me, I taste the difference. I'm not a big coffee drinker, so I don't really see the nuances in terms of coffee, but the earthy flavor that you mentioned, yes. And I like that with the burdock, and I just got some chicory roots yesterday, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I got it yesterday, I just cleaned it.
Yeah, same. You can kind of smell, like we'll pass these around and I think you'll be able to smell that there's this like earthy, bitter, like the flavors that we often associate with things like chocolate and coffee. It's kind of the best way I have to explain kind of what that flavor is.
And the good thing is when you're utilizing these plants, because it is made with, it comes from nature and it has you in mind, like we're talking about flavor and all of these things, and we're looking for coffee taste and all of that stuff, but this comes with amazing health benefits. Dandelion, again, great for the digestive system. If you're constipated, it has even inulin, which is great for bacteria. It has inulin in them, so even if you were to take it in terms of a tea, or you put it in like a vinegar infusion with it, you're going to see some white stuff at the bottom of the sediment. That's nothing bad, right? Don't be afraid of that. That's just inulin. you want to just mix it and take it in because your bacteria, they don't just love fiber, but they also love that. And that's going to be amazing in helping you cultivating a really great microbiome with, bacteria that are like in love with the space that they are in. So definitely use that.
Is it in burdock root too?
Yes.
Okay,
We found them in almost all of the roots have that. Even chicory roots have it too. Because of you're starting to think of the starch.
yeah, right.
So it's like you're having all of those finishing residues. Another great thing about dandelion flower. So dandelion flower in the summertime, I love it in terms of the oil infusion because it is great for as a sunscreen. It protects the skin against UV.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, dandelion it's an amazing plant. I can't say you can use all parts. The green leaf part, if you use the green leaf, I will say use the young one. Like the one when you go to the supermarket and you see those big gigantic dandelion leaves. I have never seen those big gigantic leaves out in nature, walking around looking at dandelion. I've never seen it. I don't know, maybe because it always gets removed, so we only see it in its younger years. But I like the tender younger years leaves much better. It's not as bitter. I can't stand the older leaves. They're too bitter for me to ingest. Other people works for them, great. So what I did, because remember we talked about the range of bitterness. The range of bitterness of the mature leaf, I just can't stomach it. But I found that the younger leaves, I have no problem eating it raw, eating it cooked. So that's where I stay at. So you can always pick which part is best for you. You may not even like the leaf. You may just enjoy the flower, or you may just enjoy the root,
And that comes back to having a conversation a little bit about seasonality, right? That like some of these plants later in the season, same for garlic mustard, are going to get more and more bitter over time. And same with harvesting your roots. You want to do that in the spring or you want to do that in the fall.
There's two best times to harvest fruits, fall and spring. In the springtime is more bitter because we're coming out of the winter and nature is like, listen, I know in the wintertime you ate a bunch of crap. I didn't give you a whole lot of things, and I know you ate a whole bunch of crap. So don't worry about it. I have this plant that augments the bitterness to help clean your system, to help move you from being sluggish, because in the wintertime we all sluggish, right? So that things can be activated a little bit more, your digestive system can get some help, some assistance in supporting you and getting rid of those excess waste, right? Especially if you're constipated. So that's why it's more bitter in the winter, to assist us in our detoxification. In the fall, it's sweeter. It's not bitter, it's sweeter, because in the fall, the intention nature has for is not to worry so much about it's not about cleaning your system, but it's about giving your body reserves. Reserves are carbohydrate because the winter time, if you're living off the grid and things of that nature, we don't have access to food in abundance. So let's just say there's a famine, there's a drought, there's whatever, you can't get enough food in, but you ate enough of those things in the fall, or you gather them in the fall, the high starch amount that's in there is going to give your body energy so that you can move, energy so that you can do things. So there's always a reason why the flavors are changing, and flavors are always attached to a set of nutrients, properties. It's always attached to that. So it's not just, oh, it tastes sweet. Oh, it tastes bitter. If it's bitter, there's alkaloid. If it's sour, you can honestly bank that there's going to be some antioxidant in there. That you're going to find some vitamin C. All the antioxidants are always into sour fruit. Sour plants will be high in that. So once you do a little bit more research, you learn more about different types of flavors, so that even as you're just eating something, even though you may not know exactly what's in the plant, you have an idea. So if I'm eating anything sour, I know I'm getting antioxidant. I don't know how much of it. I may not even know which one, but I know it's there because of the sour. If it's bitter, I know I'm getting alkaloids. If it's salty, I know that I'm getting minerals. So it's like there's all those little nuances that tells you what you're getting.
Yeah, for sure. And I just love to think that like nature spends this summer collecting all of that sugar and putting it in its roots so that it can survive the winter and so that we can survive the winter.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's next? I think next we were gonna kind of talk about umami.
Yes.
All right, so we were gonna talk about mushrooms and using mushrooms as a seasoning.
Mhm.
So we had used some turkey tails in our beer making the other day, but we were gonna talk about how you can also use them to make stock.
Yes. So when you think of seasoning, right? So method, different ways. For example, if you're cooking anything that requires water, like when you're making rice or when you're making pasta, right? You're using the water to soften, your rice and your pasta or whatever grains that you're cooking. So what you may want to do is you want to amplify the water. Instead of it just being plain water with no flavor, no kind of benefit added to it, what you do, you make like a broth or whatever prior to, or a tea, right? Utilizing these mushrooms or these plants that have like the umami flavors to it. And once you do that, you make you literally just you're simmering them. You're putting them in water and let them simmer for a couple of hours, the exact same method that you use when you're making vegetable broth or one broth, right? And once that's ready, that water, you then use it to cook your rice, to cook your grains, to cook your pasta. And what that does is now is you're adding great health benefit to what you're eating. You know what I mean? So it's not just plain old white rice. It has the benefits of turkey tail. It has the benefit of
Wine caps.
right? You can even throw in some roots in there as well, like burdock, dandelion, all of these things to enhance your food so that you want to make sure your body gets everything that it needs. And these are some of the ways that you can do that to ensure that you're getting that. So you may not, I don't always like to drink tea, so I'm like, okay, you know what? Even when I make like oatmeal, something simple as oatmeal. Before I put my oats in there, I'm going to create a broth with the herbs or different types of things prior to, and then utilizing that to make my oatmeal so that I'm adding extra things to it without adding the physical thing into the oatmeal itself. So you can do it in that way.
And especially like if you use dried mushrooms in general, let's say you just get like a dried forest mix from the store, right? That's how they're often sold. When you reconstitute those mushrooms by boiling them in hot water, you are making a mushroom broth. Don't throw it away. Save it, put it in your rice, put it in your soup, put it in your polenta. You're getting a 2-for-1 there. Like, don't miss,
And again,
sleep on that.
Think of the flavor because, if the flavor is strong, be mindful of that. If something that you like but it's really, really strong, just use a little bit of it. And as you're tasting it, it's like, I like the way it tastes, what will they go good with? And then you just slowly just use that water, and then it doesn't always have to be water, it can be milk. You know what I mean? If you normally use milk to make whatever else, then prep your milk prior to, right? Do like a slow simmer with your milk with certain things, and then mix it with whatever it is that you are cooking. So if you're baking, you're talking about anise, hyssop, and preserving so if you're baking, right? If you infuse it in your milk, right? If you're using milk in your baking and you infuse it there, then you use that milk to cook whatever, it will carry on.
For sure. Yeah. Cool. One that we didn't have on our thing here, but that I thought I would mention because I am just starting to learn about it as far as umami goes, is seaweeds.
Oh.
Now, my friend Alexis forages seaweeds all the time. I do not yet. It is one of those other flavors that I find very challenging, but I did have some dulse flakes that I bought that I've been working with, and I thought I would pass around. Do you have some things you can offer about seaweeds?
Yes. Seaweed. For me, it will be sea moss, bladderwrack. The sea lettuce. That's another one that is plentiful. Now, I have to say, I know how to identify them when I'm at the beach and things of that nature. I have yet to forage them from the beach and then bring it home and use it. I'll just go and be like, oh, that's a sea moss. What's up, bladderwrack? Hey, sea lettuce, I see you. And keep it moving because you also want to keep in mind the environment that these plants are coming from. And if you're not sure on how clean and all of that is, then since I'm not sure, I'm like, okay, well, I like you, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very big part of it, for sure.
So
'cause
I
they can
tend to order
definitely-
my monster.
Yeah, very, very fair. But also another one that can offer so much kind of depth and umami to something that you're eating.
Yeah, and it's great it has a lot of minerals, you know, and we have to supply our body with minerals every day, not every other day, every day. And I know that with sea moss, it has over, don't quote me on this, but I think like over 90 minerals, but those are trace minerals. You know what I mean? Those are trace minerals, meaning there's only traces of those, but we don't need a high amount. That's really what we need into our body. There's traces of those, but the more you take it, you'll see yourself having less leg cramp, right? Because if you're magnesium deficient, you might see yourself having a lot of tremors, like you're always cramping up. That's a sign that you are lacking in some type of minerals, and more likely magnesium. Here in the United States, a lot of us are deficient in magnesium. So that is one that we need to have in a daily, because it affects us in a really big way. It affects your sleep, it affects how you move, it affects how your hormone function and all of these things. So you want to make sure that you get that. And if you can just get some sea moss, some sea lettuce, whatever it is that you order, dulce, and then you just kind of implement that into your routine slowly, you tend to see a really good benefit out of that.
Mhm. Are we ready to move on to pungent?
Yes.
All right, pungent time. So one of the ones that we wanted to talk about in pungent is field garlic, or, you know, in general, the allium family, right? The garlics and the onions of the world. And to show you about that one, we have not only the dried plant itself, and this is a plant you see growing everywhere, but I also made a compound butter with thyme and the field garlics yesterday. Super easy. Chop up some chives, chop up some thyme, take some room temperature butter, don't drop it on the ground. Take some room temperature butter, mix it together, roll it up in some wax paper, boom, you've got some fancy butter that you can put on everything. Everybody's
And it
impressed.
costs you nothing. This is expensive. Like if you go ahead and you buy it, you feel like you're getting, you know, but it's really not that hard to do. Very easy, and you can do your own remix of it with plants that you like, with flavors that you like. And guys, remember, we are in a social gathering season, right? Like fall, the end of the year, there's a lot of gathering. People are cooking, and all of these things is happening. So you can really create these memorable dishes, condiment, where people never really had the chance to explore or engage with, and you can, you know, give them that experience.
Yeah, and I also just want to shout out that like field garlic is everywhere. It's super duper abundant. And what's interesting to me is that, you know, in the past decade or so, we've seen ramps become super duper popular, right? They are, however, pretty scarce. So when you're thinking about using ramps, you want to make sure that you're using them in ways where you're getting a big bang for your buck. So like, for instance, I have some ramp salt that I made so that I can know that that flavor is going as far as I can make it go. With field garlic, the sky's the limit. You can harvest as much of it as you want. And frankly, 90% of people are not going to be able to tell a difference between the two. And if they do, congratulations to them, but like, there's no difference. Like there's no difference.
There really isn't. And
It's just
there's
branding.
2 times of the year where we have them, right? So, oh yes, please. So we have them in the spring. In the early spring, that is one of the first things that you see when I'll come out and it's like springtime. You know, all I will see is these little patches. It literally look like patches, and there's little strings that stick out, and it's longer than any other grass that's out there. And I'm like, okay, that's the time I will like go and I harvest the whole bunch and I make fresh seasoning with it, because prior to that, I'll go to the supermarket or the farmer's market, I'll give me some chives, some scallions, but I use them in nature. And then now in the fall, they come back. So we see them in the spring, and then we see them again in the fall. And right now I'm starting to see some that's coming up. And I'm watching them because I want to get the fall one. Because every season, again, like we said before, is when you're going to get something a little different. The flavor might be different. the constituent or the property of the plant might slightly change. I want to get all the benefits, so.
Mhm. Yeah, I love them. I think they're delicious. I pickle the bulbs. I make pesto or butter out of the chive part. You can also make an oil. Again, like I had an event where I made it 4 different ways. So I made like a field garlic oil, I made a compound butter, I made a pesto, and I pickled the bulbs. And I'm sorry, like, if you're gonna go dig up ramps, which are, you know, struggling to survive, please consider the humble field garlic instead.
And that's the thing too, is like, you know, if you're getting into foraging and getting out there and getting all these amazing things, please, please, please be mindful, because nature is responsible for all species, right? All species, that includes us. So when we go, we can't over harvest things, because we want to keep in mind the environment. We want to keep in mind the plant itself, because the plant wants to go through its life cycle and do what it needs to do as well. And if we eradicate them because we are harvesting too much of it and not thinking, if you're digging at the root, it's not going to come back, right? So you want to be mindful. If you can use another part that doesn't necessarily require removal of the root, or when you go, if you see that there's a lot, you know, take 1, 2, maybe 3, there's a whole lot. But if you only see 3, admire them from afar, acknowledge them, and keep it moving, because we want them to regenerate. We want them to be here. And we don't know what other species of animal who are also relying on those ramps and utilizing them. So we want to always be mindful of others and not just of ourselves. Because if you're foraging them, there's going to be another human that's also foraging them. And every single one of us have to take that accountability and responsibility, especially when we engage with nature, because it's not a supermarket that has this reorder constantly on and on, right? It's timely, it's seasonal, and it's based also on the need within the environment. So just keep that in mind.
Do you want to talk about wild bergamot now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, I have her here. I'll let you do the honors.
So this is bergamot, right? You guys actually had the chance to smell the flowers earlier, and it is part of the mint family. It has a square stem, right? And bergamot is also known as a replacement for oregano, an amazing replacement for oregano. If you smell the leaves, you can kind of see, you can smell that oregano scent. You can really touch on it. Another way that you can use it is just like how you would use oregano in your seasoning and all of that stuff. So if I'm making a blend that normally will have oregano, I'm gonna pull out bergamot, because yeah, I can use the oregano, but I'm looking for something different. I want to enhance something else, and that's what I will use it. The flowers, you can also use the flowers the exact same way. I tend to powder them, or I'll leave them whole until it's needed. An oil, making an oil infusion. So if you know, like oil of oregano, like oil of bergamot, literally neck and neck, same type of benefit. Great for your digestive system, because it's a pungent herb. So it's great for the digestive system. It is great in savory foods. I love it to mix it in savory food. I do like it in tea, right? Because it's also really good for colds and flu as well. It's antimicrobial, antibacterial. So all of that superpower. Many times when I'm sick, I will use plants that have all of these benefits that can help me get better quicker. So I will definitely enhance everything with bergamot.
Yeah, it is an MVP of like an Italian spice blend for
Yes.
sure. And then I guess the last one maybe that we had on our list was bayberry leaves.
Yeah, bayberry leaves. So bayberry leaves, you use it and it reminds us of bay leaf. If you've ever used bay leaf, right? If you've ever had bay leaf, then you would enjoy bayberry leaves. It smells so nice. It has like a sweet scent to it that I adore.
Yeah, and you just use a few more than you would a bay leaf.
So the way I use it, I use bay leaf And when I'm cooking my rice, when I am making broth, right, I'll throw bay leaf in there. But instead of the bay leaf, 'cause I don't really buy it anymore because we have an abundance of bayberry leaf, like concrete plant pots. I just use that. I'll throw it in my rice. I'll throw it in my stews. I just throw it everywhere because it really helps to enhance, and then the smell when everything blends together is amazing.
Yeah, I haven't bought bay leaves. I don't know when the last time I would have bought bay leaves was, because why would I? They're everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So now I think it's time to let our friends here make some mixes. Is that what we wanted to do now?
Yeah, we're gonna be doing some mixes for sure. So what we're going to do, so I talked about golden milk, I talked about chocolate, right? Hot chocolate and things like that. The reason why I'm bringing these things up is because, again, like we are in fall, getting into winter, cold season month. We tend to drink a lot of warm flavor stuff, whether it's spice, latte, all of these fall flavors to keep us grounded, warm, and giving us comfort. So hot chocolate is one. Golden milk is another one. But I'm trying to keep your health in mind, so we're gonna create our own mix that you can use. You just have a way you normally make your hot chocolate. That's just the same way you'll do it. But this will be something that everything is already mixing together, and you get to pick what you want to add into it. So it's really important to smell. Like take the time, smell something. If you like the way it smells, and you can kind of envision what it will be like together, then you add it, you know, and start slow. I will say just mix slow. Don't mix a whole lot of things all at once because you don't know what it's going to be like. I'm gonna give you guys one to follow, but I definitely want you guys to throw in your own little mix in there. Like let your creative juices come in and just try something. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. Let me get the items.
Get your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be interesting to think about how you kind of merge different flavors with each other so that you create something that has some balance. So if you know something's got a good amount of bitter, right? But you want to add a sour, or you want to add a pungent, like maybe you want to make a mint chocolate. Chocolate, hot chocolate, or you want to make something that's like more bright and like lemony, maybe you'd add sumac. To add both together might be too much, so like this is where you can kind of go a little bit at a time and learn,
Yep, absolutely. And you also want to kind of like ingredients are important, right? So when you're making your hot chocolate, you're making your hot chocolate from scratch, I would say get cacao, right? Not cocoa, but cacao. Why? Because the process is different for the two. And one is left with all of its nutrients and properties. And then the other one is not left with any of that. So all of the amazing things you hear about chocolate, how it has, high antioxidants, is good for stress, all of these amazing things, it's true. But you'll get a whole lot more if you get it from cacao than cocoa. So cacao will be C-A, then C-A-O, right? That's cacao. We'll make sure that that's what it says. Now, I was over here, right? You see here, there's cocoa here at the top, and then there's cacao at the bottom. So this is not cacao, right? This is cocoa, because it tells us right from front. This is cocoa, but it comes from the cacao plant, right? That's why it's 100%. So when you're looking for your cacao, you want to make sure it is just cacao. You don't want to see no cocoa anywhere within the ingredients, because if you do see it, that means that that's the plant that has been, because with the cocoa, they use high heat, and that high heat kills everything. It kills everything. So the cacao is fermented, but there's no high heat used with it. So it has all of its properties intact. So that's why you should use it. Now, if it's 100% with a cacao or cocoa, that bitterness is going to be there because chocolate is naturally bitter. It is not sweet. It becomes sweet depending on what you add to it. So,
what do you need, like a bowl or something? Or are you gonna mix it in your mortar and pestle?
I can use a bowl for that. The mortar and pestle, I'm gonna use it for the cardamom and the other things we're gonna make. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna pass this around. So what I'm gonna do, yes, thank you. I told you guys how much I like spruce tips, right? Because of the way that it makes you feel. So I'm going to add a little bit of spruce tips. I'm putting in my mortar pestle right here, and I'm gonna.
You want me to do it? You want me to go ahead and do that?
Yep. Do your thing, and you guys can have that. Yes, you got cardamom. Yes, so just take some, so have some on the table, so when you're doing your mix, if you want to add all of that in.
And here I can lend my mortar and pestle to tea. Use my mortar and pestle.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Right here. Right, so that's the spruce tips. What I also like is to add in some cinnamon. So this is Ceylon cinnamon. I prefer this than the other cinnamon, which is Casine. Oh my God, what's the name? The regular cinnamon that you guys get at the supermarket is not the same as the Ceylon cinnamon. This is what we consider true cinnamon. Real cinnamon is this, and the smell is different, it's lighter. I don't know, it's just something about it. So I like to add this into my one, two.
Would you want me to pass this
Yeah.
around? Pass this to everybody?
Perfect.
Some cinnamon for you. Did you? Just one second. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, let's use the one that we put the card.
For time purposes, right? So with mine, I'm gonna compare, it's kind of like. Now it's really great. So I want it to be tasty. I want it to be, I want to feel the good. I want to be able to drink something that not only does it taste good, but it has great health benefits. And I don't have to worry about, oh my God, I just had hot chocolate and it has all this thing in here. I'm not supposed to drink it, all that blah, blah, blah. No, I want to be able to enjoy it. So you can always turn something that may not be as healthy as it should be into something that is really healthy, depending on what you add in. Another thing that I have here that I like to add into mine, and I do that for my kids and myself. Now, you don't have to add this one, it's totally up to you, but Vitex, which is chaste berry, and I poured this a couple of years ago. Yeah, I poured, I don't use this. I'm throwing in some Vitex, not a whole lot, just a little bit, because I have kids that are going through puberty, and this, especially for like boys, it's great. It helps with the acne breakout. It helps to balance their hormone, because during puberty, your hormone is just out of whack. It's all over the place. You know, emotions run high and low. And Vitex is really great at helping with hormonal balance. It's great for fertility. It's amazing for the reproductive system, period. So for my son, it works. For me, it works also, I'm in that time where I do need to pay attention to balancing my hormone and making sure that I'm properly looking after all of those parts of me. I add this in there.
You know, I would figure out the next component.
Awesome. Do that. And then we talked about, what is that? What are those roots?
Dandelion roots?
Yes, dandelion roots. So here, I'm gonna add in some dandelion roots in
Go
there.
ahead and drop, or you just kind of, you're just adding everything to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not putting a whole lot because I don't want a whole lot. I just need a little bit. Doesn't have to be a whole bunch. Here. Part of it dried up. Now, let me say this. Cardamom is strong, okay? You just need just a smidget, like literally, you just need a little bit. Because one time I used it and I put this much and it just killed the whole thing. Killed the whole thing. And I only stopped using it until I scaled it back and found a sweet spot, and it was just amazing. And ever since I can't have it without cardamom. So
I love
adding.
How much do you grind up your dandelion roots and things like that?
I like to get things into powder.
Okay, so you're gonna keep it in the mixture. You're not gonna kind of strain it out. This is my question.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay, great.
yeah, because what I do, once I create the whole thing, I have like a jar, but all of that stuff is mixed. When I'm ready, I just, you got it, boss. So yeah, that will be it. Then I'll take some of the hot chocolate, the chocolate powder. And it really doesn't matter how much you add in, because the chocolate powder is the main ingredient. And the other things you can add in here, you can add ashwagandha, grind it up and add it in here. Another one that I like to add in is maca. But be careful if you add maca, it's definitely gonna give you a lot of energy.
You said maca?
Maca. Before maca, ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha,
Yeah, ashwagandha, which is really good, just for your whole body. You do want to keep in mind of your own health conditions. So you do want to look into these things in case if you have, for example, Graves' disease, right? Ashwagandha is not something that you should be using. So you do want to, again, keep your condition and whatever it is that you might have going on in mind, and just make sure that the things that you're adding is not going to interact or interfere with whether it's medication or just worsen your condition.
What about some spice bush, which I realized that we did not talk about?
Ooh, that's a shame. Yes, so I will add the spice bush in
The golden.
yes. Now, sometimes I add spice bush into that. Like, there's really I don't have like just a one way, one thing, and that's it. Because sometimes I put in some lemongrass. I love lemongrass flavor. Lemongrass, cinnamon, and chocolate. I love that blend. So it just depends on what I have and what taste that I'm feeling, because your body, once you start doing all of these things, then you're gonna see that your body will start to crave certain flavors. And my body craves certain flavors. So depending on what my body's asking for, or depending on what everyone in the household is dealing with, I might just switch it up. If we're all sick, then I might add something that will just give us more. Like, there's some hawthorn berries, right? So if I was dealing with some emotional things, or I'm having some type of heart issue, I'm grinding up some hawthorn berries and I'm adding it into my blend for sure. Yep.
That makes it really, higher.
Mm.
In your hot chocolate?
Oh,
Yes, yes. So you can make your hot chocolate spicy. You know, like that's a really good thing too. So this is it. And then you just mix it and then you put it in a jar. And then there you have it, your own kind of hot chocolate mix. What my daughter likes to do, she likes to get those marshmallows and then she'll add a little tiny marshmallow in there. That's how she likes to do it. But so I do allow the kids, to make their own blend because I also want them to kind of like get hands-on experience and learn these things so that when they are older, because you guys know how it is, you don't put this stuff into place until you're much older like we are, because we were not doing all this when we were young, they didn't have time for that. They're like, I have to hang out with my friend. What are you talking about? Mixing stuff. You're done, you're good to go. And you just make your hot chocolate how you normally would make your hot chocolate. And then you label it. Always make sure you label yourself. You gotta see how Candace is labeling her things because sometimes you think you're gonna remember what
won't.
something is. You won't.
You will not.
So it's not even worth it to even play around with it. Another thing too, you can do as well here, you can also add some turmeric inside of here too.
And I love that working with hot chocolate in this way, it's like a really nice, accessible way, like, it'd be real hard to mess up a hot chocolate, you know what I mean? And so like, it's a great way to kind of get started in working with these kinds of flavors and mixing them together. And then maybe to graduate from there to making your own kind of like, herb de Provence blend or Italian seasoning blend or maybe even not referencing it as some other place, like a northeastern blend.
Yes, northeastern blend. I love that. So it's like now after this one, I've added a little bit of turmeric in there. Turmeric is amazing for inflammation. So if you're dealing with inflammation, which we all do, right? Adding some turmeric in there. But if you're gonna add turmeric, you need to add in like black pepper because black pepper enhances the properties of where it's in your body. Your body can actually absorb it to use it, which is another thing with herbs and plants is just because you're taking it, it doesn't mean that your body is going to absorb it. They have to come in a way that your body is going to absorb it so they can use it. If they can absorb it, you ate it, you drank it, but it just ran through you. Your body's like, yeah, I saw what you gave me, but I can't do nothing with it. It didn't come complete. So when you add black pepper with your turmeric, it gives you that. So we don't have black pepper, but what we do have is spice bush, right? The berries of the spice bush, which can play the role of black pepper, is like the alternative to black pepper. Yes. So sometimes I will add that. Other times I'll add ginger, right? And then sometimes I'll just add like a little tiny bit. If you're gonna add black pepper, just add a little bit. You're not adding it so that you can taste it when you're drinking your hot chocolate. You're just adding just enough so that it can enhance and make everything easy for you to absorb. And when you add black pepper to almost anything, that is one of black pepper's superpower. It makes whatever it is that you're mixing it with easier for your body to absorb it. Yep. Oh, you did that. Okay.
I did it. It's
All right, yeah. So then this, this is it. It's like another line, putting it in a thing, and it's good to go. And then again, you want to make sure that you label it so you know the one that has the turmeric in there versus the one that doesn't have the turmeric in there.
Let's see, so this one was, oh boy, there was cinnamon.
cinnamon, the
Vitex,
um,
dandelion.
yeah, spruce tips. Hard.
Okay. Cool.
Where's that beautiful blender?
Oh, where is the beautiful blender? Oh, right there. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So for the next one, making the golden milk. So golden milk is when you're using turmeric, right? You see how chocolate milk, the main ingredient is chocolate and everything else. Well, in golden milk, turmeric is the main ingredient, right? And it's an amazing, you make it just like how you make hot chocolate, literally no difference. So I'm gonna put everything in here. So for this one, definitely adding cinnamon. I love this. Adding this in here. I brought some nutmeg as well. I brought some nutmeg. And one of the things that you also want to keep in mind is it is best to have your spices whole and then grind them as you need them. Why? Because when you're using, once it's already grounded, like the cardamom right here, right? So right now it's really potent, but it's also going to start to degrade and lose its potency over time because it has been broken down. When it's whole, right, it's still intact. It's still very, very much the flavor, everything is intact, even though it's dry. But this, let's just say in the next 6 months, will not have the same strength and taste profile like it is right now. So I don't like to buy mine crushed because I don't know how long ago they did it. I don't know if this is of last year, how long ago, which means that it may not be as potent or the flavor that I'm looking for, I may not even find it in there. So my nutmeg, I like to keep them whole so that I can just
Put the gloves on, I got you. In here? Yeah, you want me in
kind
here?
of do it in there because it's. Oh, there you go. A little goes a long way with spices. I love my cinnamon, so.
And we see all the time these days, these like mushroom coffees and mushroom drinks, you know, these like superfood purported,
Yeah,
whatever.
I do
drinks,
add
like-
mushrooms in them too, like, I love to add chaga, I love to add, what's the other one? There's chaga, reishi, if I have lion's mane powder up, or turkey tail powder up, I will add it into it, but it really depends on what I'm looking for and what I need. And then I'll just add them, and it's always, the way that they come out always amazes me because the flavor of it is like, oh, okay, I see you. So this one, I'm adding the spruce tips, yep. I love it. Baby. And then I'm going to add something else, magnolia flower, to this particular. I have the bark, but I love the flower. I just do. I use the bark more when I'm making like a tincture. So just adding the flowers in here.
So that's that spicy kind of gingery component. Does it
Yeah.
still have that when it's dried? I've never tried it when it's dried.
I don't know. It's like a gentle spice.
Yeah.
It's a really gentle, spicy to it. This is my magnolia sugar, magnolia flower sugar. So this is one that was mixed with it when it was fresh. So that's why you don't see any kind of parts of the magnolia leaves or anything of flower in here because it's just like crushed, pulverized, and then I let it dry up and then crush it again once it was dried, and that's what I have. Okay, and I'm missing something. What else we have here I want to add?
Sumac, juniper, mint.
Oh, let's see some sumac. I don't want to find the sumac. to it?
Where's the lid? Oh, here it is. I don't.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, you can literally put in anything in there. Another thing that we have here too is chocolate mint. So we have hot chocolate mint. Mixing it in there, it kind of goes really well too, because chocolate mint does have that chocolate scent. But what I like to do with my chocolate mint, I like to mix it with salt, right? Because salty and sweet, when you add a little bit of saltiness to a sweet, it enhances the sweet flavor. It's kind of like bring it to life. It does what lemon does to a fruit mix punch. When you add lemon, it's like, oh, yes. So when you add like salt to your hot chocolate once it's ready, not like a spoon of salt, just like a sprinkle and you drink it, you really get that nice enhancement. So I like to mix the chocolate mint with the salt so that I can just sprinkle it all over as I'm drinking it.
I had Nathan do it because I figured it would just, with the microphone, you wouldn't hear what you said.
Okay, good call, good call. Also, if you guys want to use the grinder, because it's grinds easy and smoother, you guys can definitely do that as well.
Thank you, Nathan. Look at that, so effective.
Yes.
It smells incredible.
And then you can create these kind of mixes. Like we have golden milk because you're using turmeric, and turmeric is that yellow, it's gonna give that yellow color to it, right? But I don't have to add turmeric or hot chocolate. I can just do a milky drink that's warm with just those mixes and those other roots together, and then just use that as well. Oh, I don't measure, sorry, y'all. So. Mix it. Turmeric has a very strong scent. When I make my golden milk, what I like to add to it, I like to do it like bulletproof, which means that I'm going to add a healthy fat, whether it's a teaspoon of coconut oil or hemp oil or a little bit of grass-fed butter in there. I might just do that to make it more whole. If I do it, then I'll have like that in the morning. And what that does is it keeps me satiated and full longer, so I can expand the length of time before I eat the whole lunch. So if I don't want to eat, or I don't have time to eat, then I'm definitely adding fat to my mix once it's made, because it's going to definitely hold me until it's time for me to eat. So I won't feel hunger. Yeah. This is what we have. The type of milk you want to use, that's totally up to you. Whether you're using nut milk or you're using dairy milk, whatever floats your boat.
I'll jar it up for you, give it to our workshop participants. Oh, it smells so good.
Right? So that's done. Because we don't have fresh, we didn't collect, well, we did collect fresh, that's why we have the dry chocolate mint, but we do have apple mint that's fresh. And I just want to give you guys, it's apple mint and lemon balm, so I'm gonna use those two, crush it. Can I see the motherfucker? Thank you. Ooh, yeah, it's heavy.
Told you.
Oh. Okay.
I hope my mom got free shipping on that thing. She gave it to me for Christmas.
Oh, man, this is, wow. Okay, cool. Yes, thank you. There you go. It's about to get wet. Okay, so. This. Come on, lemon. Lemon balm is great for the nervous system. It is great. It's an antiviral, awesome for viral infection. It has been used a lot for flares up, like herpes flares up. Not goldenrod, lemon balm is great for that.
And what are you making right now?
I'm just gonna do a salt.
Okay. Here you go, here's some salt for you.
And you guys gonna see just how.
Did y'all have any questions or anything while she's doing that? No, no one else on the internet has had any other questions aside from how to bake with anise hyssop, which I'm gonna, of course, now stay awake thinking about.
Okay. Bang it because I want to get the juices out and make sure it's mixing really well. Now, pulverize it. Smell that. I like it this way because of the color. You know, so it's like a nice finishing touch. So I mixed it with salt. I didn't put no sugar in this one. So the juices of both lemon balm and nutmeg.
Yep.
I'm gonna pass this around so you guys can kind of see, play around with it, smell it.
And so then from here, in order to make sure that it dries properly, you would just lay it out somewhere, kind of pull it out of this, let it dry out, maybe put it in your oven, even just with the pilot light on, maybe.
Yeah.
This is making me think of last week's fermentation of herbs, and I'm wondering, like, this is almost like a first step, similar, is it like similar?
Yeah, it's very similar because you're using the natural juices of the plant. So if I wanted to ferment that, then I'll just put it in a jar and I'll just let it sit for a couple of days and then pull it out. And then it's like, okay, now I have fermented sugar. But thanks for saying that because I haven't done that. So I'm never going to try that. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's it. Do we have any like final thoughts or anything that we wanna say?
Yeah, I actually do. You know, experiment, try different things, and you know, just do your own research and make sure that while you are getting plans and putting things together, keep yourself in mind. Like keep yourself in mind as you're doing it, as you're tasting it. Listen to your body, right? Because your body, when you taste something new, your body's gonna let you know if it works for you or not. So really pay attention to that and don't just stick to something just because someone else said, oh, we say that it's really good for you or whatever, but then your body's like, it's not good for us. So listen to yourself, pay attention to your body, pay attention to the taste bud. If you're having tingling sensation in your tongue, that's an indication that you're having an allergic reaction to that particular plant. So even if it's just a tiny tingle, right? Like, okay, I'm having a reaction. It's an allergic reaction. It's small, but that's all you want it to be. And then just kind of know from there, okay, I'm not going to use that plant, right? So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
cool. Question.
Yes.
I have a question. As far as for
like extreme period cramps. I know rose is like a good thing to have as far as like in teas. Does rose hip also help with that, or what else kind of herbal wise as far as teas?
In terms of period cramps, so in terms of period cramps, I'll say like raspberry leaves. I'll say that chasteberry is also one because it's just
Chase.
yeah
Chaste,
chaste
like,
CHASTE or Vitex. If you like mugwort, is also another one. Mugwort is known as the woman's herb, so it's really good. So if you're having those cramps, so with these, even with the red raspberry or raspberry leaf period, you don't want to wait until your periods start or to start using it. You want to start using it already, so that if you say like, okay, my week, like I know I'm getting my period in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or the next week, start prior to that, because your PMS starts before the actual period starts, right? So you want to be ahead of that, and you want to continue to do that throughout, because with those type of herbs, it needs time to work through the body. It's not medication, so it's not like I'm drinking it right now and I'm having my cramp and it's gonna disappear. It's like, no, I'm working on other things. Like I didn't get to that part yet. So you want to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
cool. Well, I think we have talked a lot about seasonings. I hope that you'll join us next week. I'm gonna pass it off to Nathan, but I hope you'll join us next week when we talk about wild nuts and seeds and grains. Here, let me take this.
That's hilarious. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Journey, so much. A real shout out to the team here who is leading behind the scenes. Really, the planning, everything is the two right here. But excited to help co-host this or help facilitate. Like Candace said, we welcome you back next week when we talk about wild nuts and seeds and grains, and we think about how we can be using that in our diet. And a big plug out for November 5th. We want you to come out and enjoy all these great things. It's a kind of a compilation of all of these workshops in one, an opportunity to be together and to try all these foods. So we welcome you out on November 5th.
Social gathering events, the social gathering time. So definitely it's harvest season, right? And so we want to celebrate our bounty. Everything that we were able to accumulate together, our time together, just a nice, really big celebration to really close up the season.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's it. Come
That's
hang
it.
out.
We'll see you later.